Hi, I'm Dave Adams, and this is The Core Mechanic. And today we're looking at number 55 on Mike Selinker's list of top 100 games you must absolutely, positively know how to play, Falling. Hi, my name's Dave Adams, and I love playing games. At the 2015 PAX convention, one of my favourite game designers, Mike Selinker, presented his list of top 100 games you must absolutely, positively know how to play. The 100th game on the list was a challenge to play a game of my own design. With a desire to understand more about the hobby that I love so much, I've taken on that challenge to design a game. But first, I need to learn as much as I can about game design. I'm going to start by playing as many of the games on Mike's list as possible. Join me as I learn more about the core mechanic. This tiny little card game was designed in 1998 by James Ernest for PAX Games. Now, PAX Games was his own production company, essentially set up so that he could, well, I suppose, publish his own games. That makes sense, doesn't it? Now, the idea of PAX Games was that he didn't have a big budget. He didn't have a lot to put together. So every game had to be self-contained, and if you did need any odds and ends like dice or tokens, you'd find them yourself. So this game is fully self-contained. Let's have a look at how it's played. Now there's one main deck, and at the bottom of the deck is the ground cards, which people are trying to avoid, and trying to be the last one to receive a ground card to win the game. The deck is made up of rider cards such as Hit, which gives an extra card, Skip, which could work on either way, but it allows you to skip a card, Split, which gives 2 decks, Move, which allows a rider to be moved, and Stop, which stops a card from being played, including a ground card. Now when you get to the advanced rules, you can start using game cards like Shoot, Anvil, and Goggles, and they have special rules that allow them to interact with the game differently. Now the dealer is going to start by shuffling the rider cards and putting the ground cards at the bottom of the deck, and then simply dealing out the cards, one to each player as they go. The players are going to look at which cards are in front of them, and they're going to try and play their cards as riders in front of other players or on themselves to try and get the best benefit out of them. So you might take a hit and put it there. That means that that person's going to receive 2 extra cards. This person might take their split, which is going to give them 2 sets of cards to consider, and that person might just try and move that back over to a person on the other side of the table. So when the dealer comes around for the second time, he's going to follow the actions of those riders. So he's going to split, put the 2 decks there, but then he's going to move the rider immediately into the discard pile. Hit, he's going to hit the person twice straight on top, put in the discard pile, and he's just going to play normally around the table. This is going to keep going on for the whole time until eventually you start to see the ground cards come up. And the last person to receive a ground card is the winner. I suppose you could say that the core mechanic here is hand control. After all, you're looking after your hand as it grows, and you're using the cards in your hand to manage your resources and try to be the last person that hits the ground. But I don't think that's the real genius of this game. I think the genius of this game is found in the fact that it's real-time strategy. Now, real-time strategy games tend to fall into the genre of video games more often, where we talk about things like StarCraft and other real-time strategy games. World of Warcraft. But board games don't tend to be real-time strategy. I mean, you've got pieces to manipulate, you've got setup to think of, but this takes all that away. It's very simple design, very simple setup. Now, I suppose today there would be 1 or 2 examples to follow in its stead. I'm thinking of XCOM, I'm thinking of Escape Curse of the Forbidden Temple. This game is incredibly simple. In fact, I took it along on a school trip, pulled it out with some students, just because I wanted to learn and to see how it played. We played that game all night, and it was amazing. We had a great time, and the fact was our first game was really bad. It went terribly. None of us knew what we were doing, we were fumbling, I was the dealer, I was all over the shop. But it only lasted 9 seconds. So who cares? We played another few rounds, and by the end of it, by game 2, we were pretty much into the flow. Now you would think that having a dealer and having players would mean that it's a bit of a bummer for the dealer. But not at all. Being a dealer is really just as intense and just as stressful. Trying to know when to what you're playing, play the card, do what it says, and then get rid of it. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it really does keep you engaged the whole time. No one ever is taking the boring turn. Now, if I was thinking about this game as a designer, I guess what I could take away from it isn't just the real-time strategy. It's what the real-time strategy did. And what it did was it gave everybody something to do on every turn. No one was ever excluded from the game. And that's quite an accomplishment for any game to achieve. I suspect that one of the challenges of any game design is knowing how to deal with downtime. There are plenty of examples I can give of games where I've sat there waiting for my turn to happen and waiting and waiting and waiting. But here, I'm not waiting at all. In fact, while it's not my turn, while I'm waiting for cards to come, I'm watching the state of play. I'm looking at what each card person gets. I'm thinking ahead of what I'm going to use my cards on and trying to deal with my rider as well as managing other people's and where I'm going to place cards. And it only lasts 90 seconds. I suppose the downside of that is that it can be exhausting. No downtime means that you're thinking the whole time, you're engaged the whole time, and that can be quite stressful for a few people. I actually know of a couple of people who have enjoyed the game of Falling or even Escape, Curse of the Forbidden Temple, but won't really play them again with me, simply because that pressure and that stress gets too much. So it's not like I think all games should get rid of downtime. In fact, downtime can be really well used. Sometimes it can be really not well used. And I guess that's the consideration I have to make. In my game, yes, I want it to be simple. I want people to get involved in it early, but I also need to think about what state of play am I creating for the player? Do they need time to think and process their moves? Do they need time to relax? Do they need time to watch the state of play, to see what other people are doing? Or do I want things coming at them hard and fast and keeping them on their toes and building the action and the excitement that way? Well, it's for consideration. Certainly, a lot of kudos to James Ernest, and a great example of a game on Mike's list. Well, thanks for listening. You've been watching The Core Mechanic. I'm Dave Adams. I'll see you next time. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below on which games use downtime well and which do not. Thanks for watching.